I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. So good to be here with you today. It's been a busy morning. I woke up this morning with a very spacious day to really only just show up and be with you here. And as I started to deepen in to my day, just checking a few emails and having some conversations with people, and what, as I mentioned in the email, if you're on our list, I started to have this like sense of, I would just call it existential angst. Like, I don't know if anything's going to turn out. I don't know what our point is. And so I noticed that hanging out in my energy space, and I was like, I wonder what that's about. So I, dropped into meditation to just take a look. And what I realized was, I was feeling heavy about how many conversations I'm in with, I'm connected with like the most powerful, magnetic, dramatic, just healer, golden shining women. And most of them are broke ass. And in fact, it's hard to find anyone who isn't. With all of the hype and slickness that you see in the online coaching world, there just aren't a huge percentage of women who are financially well, who are secure, who are resourced and abundant, and really have true freedom on all levels. So there are lots of women who are free in that they're, kind of flitting about, and they're nomadic, and so they're having cool experiences. There's one brand of women who are that. And, but yet, they don't actually have a place to call home, or they're not sure if they can pay for their plane ticket to the next gig or to get home from the next gig. And then there's a group of people who are more resourced, but they're time poor, right? So they have a corporate job, and they're, so they're paying the bills, and they might have a nice home, and they're paying for their, children's lessons and tuition and things like that, but they have no freedom. So they can't actually get away to go do anything. And they can't, take the classes they want, or, be at the events they want. And then, and then there are a very small number of women who are actually, making good money doing their actual thing in the world, and so just noticing all of that, because I'm certainly not above any of that, right? I've been all of that. I haven't ever been the nomadic, because that's not my gig, but I have been, the corporate woman with no freedom, and I have been the woman who generated a lot of money and then spent all of it, or over leveraged myself to the point where I then had to start over and generate a whole new amount of money. And so, this money thing is a topic that I have personally been up to for, I would say, my whole life, because it really has been a big part of my story. It's been a big part of my knowing that I am meant to be abundant. And so it was so confusing the years when I wasn't that, and even when I had my high paying corporate job and my fancy Lexus from the showroom floor and, my big expense account and all of that, I still actually felt poor. I felt poor because I didn't have time and I didn't have freedom, and I was really doing something that didn't fill my soul. And so there was still this question of like, is this all there is? And so then I left that to do what fulfilled me and, went down this spiritual path and, doing energy work and all of that, which I was like, yes, this is my soul work. And, still really struggled to find the right equation. So I would spend a lot of money developing a product or developing a company, and then, it wouldn't sell. And then, I would, try something else where I wouldn't have a lot of overhead. And so, this has been years. I'm 43 years old, and I would say I've been up to this money conversation for most of my life, because growing up, we often were in a situation of tightness, and I've talked about that on the show before. So if you've been listening, you've heard me say these things. And my dad was a farmer and a factory worker, and it was in the 80s. And so we were always on the verge of losing our farm or going bankrupt, or, that was a bad time for farmers. And so with all of that, I'm deeply acquainted with the struggles of money, and I do not purport to say that I have them completely worked out. And I really am in this space right now where I have abundant flow, and there's plenty and plenty of money and plenty of time, and I'm doing what my soul is here to do. And so from this space, it gives me the luxury of looking back and saying like, okay, how did this happen? Or, is there something that is there something else to do around this? So it's funny because I actually, I haven't offered a class or anything for almost a year, since I launched Magic School. I kept planning to, and I kept thinking that I would. And then just my soul wasn't up for it. The guidance kept being wait. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just hang out, even though, at some point, Magic School is going to be over. And like, I keep asking the universe, what's the next thing? Right. And it hadn't been revealed. So in fact, just on Monday, Viv and I were having a conversation, and I said, you know what? I'm just saying I am not offering a class for the rest of the summer, so I can quit even worrying about that. I can quit talking about it. I'm just going to enjoy my summer. I'm not even going to try to do anything or think about what's next. And so we agreed, this is the plan. And then I wake up this morning having this inquiry, right? And so as I follow the inquiry and I notice how depressed I am about all of these women that I want to play with, that I want to have experiences with, and none of them are resourced enough to do it or to do it consistently. What I was noticing is, it's never about the money. So there's like kind of two things that happen in this conscious community. One is people think it's not about the money, right? And so they try to do everything but address their money situation. And in fact, they often have a paradigm that says, if I receive money, then I'm not spiritual, or I'm not conscious, or I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing because now I've got money, right? And so they find ways to sabotage not taking money or to leaking money when they get it. And what I say is, it's not about the money, and it's not about the money. Right? Because money is not the thing. So it's short-sighted when you just say it's not about money, so I won't have money. But money is an energy. And so the curiosity is, if it's not about the money, then what is it about? Right? And so that's where this conversation has evolved. I spoke about it a lot last year. This idea of energetic exchange. And so money is really just a form of energetic exchange with life. And what that means is that when you are offering your gift or your service, when you're allowing your essence to exchange with life, that is when I say exchange, that means you give something of yourself, and then life gives you something back. right? So let's just kind of dissect this notion of exchange for a moment, because many of us, so if you're in the corporate job realm, or if you're in the job realm, right, where you're just working a job to make some money, there can be a way that you show up and exchange something of yourself, right? So, your body is there and your labor, is offered. If it's a little higher scale job or closer to your gifts, like I was in the corporate world as a sales manager for an insurance company, which was definitely not my soul calling, but there were parts of my gifts that were being offered there, like, leadership and business management and seeing people and knowing them and growing them, so I was offering some of my skills, but I wasn't in touch with the deepest part of my soul. So there was an exchange happening, right? So I got paid multiple six figures for doing that. And the reason that it wasn't a full exchange was because my soul wasn't all the way involved. So even making, $150,000 a year, I wasn't filled by that because my soul wasn't all the way forward, And so this is the piece that we're being called to look at. This is why it hits my soul hard when I see my friends not having money, not because money is the king, right? Or that we should have money or we should chase money, but because the reason they don't have money is because their soul is not fully exchanging with life. So there's a way that all of these gifts and this gold that they're here to respirate with the world in, they're not offering. So there's this huge withhold, right? There's this withhold within them that has their clients can't find them and they're not paying them, or, if they're meant to be, gathering people, well, they're doing that in a way that helps the people but doesn't help themselves because there's no money at the end for them to live on, right? And so that's not a sustainable way of offering ourselves. And so this is what feels really up in the collective. And it was funny because when I noticed this morning, I started to get a little on fire about it, right? So when I realized this is what my existential angst was about, and it's wait a minute, I could do something about that actually. I have something to say about that. And it's time for us to get up and take a look, to stop limping around and saying when will the universe put me out there in my purpose, or when will the universe deliver me from this, or when will the clients begin showing up, as if it's something outside of us that has this not happening. But actually, it's just these pieces within us that are not quite in alignment. And it's tricky because it's not a mind thing. It's not this is what drives me batty about the whole way that money is talked about and looked at and handled in the online coaching industry, because it's actually become this very shadowy way to leverage people for money, right? So, oh, you don't have money? Well, you should pay me your last money so that I can show you how I made money, right? And while I'm doing that, I'll be making a lot of money and you'll be wishing you had the money that I have, right? And then the whole focus is on money as something, right? So there's a lot for us to unravel as we deepen into this conversation, and a lot for us to examine in our own stories, in our own buy-in, in our own withholds, right? And so it's tricky to talk about money without your ego wanting to latch on to oh, she has something that will save me from myself. She's going to show me something and it's going to fix me, so then the clients will come, right? And just notice how quickly we take ourselves out of that equation. But actually, the truth is, the only way to really fix your money situation is for you to stand right in the center of your own space and to move the things that are in the way of you having an open, energetic exchange with life, where you are offering your soul in its wholeness, in its completeness, and then life will reward you, right? And the rewards will be every kind of exchange, right? So there will be money, absolutely. And there will be love, and there will be free time, and there will be gratitude, and there will be spaciousness, and there will be epic adventures. All of that happens as a natural boomerang, right? So you put yourself out and then life is a match to the magnificence of what you are. And so it's not about, this is another shadow, right? Is like, there's so much in the coaching industry that preys on, I need to make money. I know that I have gifts in the world. And so they're like, okay, great. Let me show you how to make a website or take pictures or use fancy language about what it is you think you do, right? So I'll make money on that. And then you'll be out here like trying to exchange with this facade that still isn't actually you, you know? And that's why it's tricky, because we all want the shortcut. Our ego wants somebody else to do it for us. Our ego wants to know that there's, some way that we can be saved from ourselves. And in my experience, the truth is that there is no shortcut for sure. That's 100% true. Like, typically I end up coaching people who've already spent $1 gazillion on all of the false stuff. And then they come to me because they have the false stuff. They have the website. They have the fancy packaging. They have the catchy title on their package, and still no one's buying it, right? And so why does that happen? Because they haven't actually fixed the fundamental thing, really the only thing that needs to be in alignment for you to be abundant and flowing. And that is your essence being out front. Your essence being the commodity. And not in the old paradigm way of commodity, like I'm going to be something so you can buy me, right? But like essence as in there's this fullness of who I am, and then something happens to flow from that, right? But that's not the point. It's not why I'm flowing. It's not why I'm showing up this way. I'm me because I'm me. That's it. End of story. Means and the end. And it naturally creates some things outside of it. It will attract some people. It will, it will have, so that's how I can wake up in the morning with no plan to offer a class. And then I just feel into myself, right? So I'm just tending myself. I'm noticing what experience I'm having. And then a fire gets lit. And then suddenly I'm like, yeah, well, do I want to do a class? Let me feel into that. Do I have time? What would I say? What is my point? I don't know. Yes, that's an experience I would like to have happen. And so literally in 45 minutes, this course is birthed, which I'm going to be telling you about. I'm already telling you about it. It's this work, right? It's this that we're doing. And I'm telling you the whole inside out part of it because I want you to see how organic these things can occur when we just show up in the truth of our beingness. So Soulful Money Medicine is going to be a 6-week course where we're deepening into what is this? What is this thing that's under the surface that has us not yet putting together the dots, right? And so what you should know about that is it's not a mind thing. So you are a brilliant, competent, capable woman, just like I was. I knew I needed to spend less when I was making a ton of money, right? And I didn't do that. I knew I needed to get a job that was more fulfilling, and then it didn't do that. And then I tried to do that, and then that didn't work, right? So I could see all the things, and the things. It's not about that. It's about what's happening outside of the mind. And this is where our subconscious and where our energy comes into play, because it's all of this money story. It's all of this money story, and money is a reflection of everything else. It's a great portal. It's a great portal to actually work on your essence, because one thing is everything, right? And I've resisted for the longest time. I was like, I am not going to be a cheesy coach who uses a gateway problem, I'm saying that in quotes, like money, because that's what all the coaches tell you, right? You need a gateway problem like health or money or business, like something that is a pain for people, and then they'll use that, and then you can get them in and teach them what you really want to teach them, right? And so for years, I was like, I am not doing that. And even though I knew I had some gifts around money, I was like, I'm just not doing it. I'm not selling out that way. And what's become really clear through this evolution of this idea of energetic exchange is that money is essence and essence is money because everything is energy. And so what your money situation looks like right now is really a reflection of what your essence looks like right now. So in all the ways that money is or isn't showing up for you, that you're having a strained relationship with it, that you feel stuck or closed down or like it's not quite enough, or you can't quite sustain it, those are all of the things that are occurring with your essence, right? Your essence is the fingerprint of your soul. It's the very specific nuances or flavors of who you are as a being. And so, when we go in to say, like, let's look at money, that's just a great door opener. And what we'll find when we start working the energy is there's going to be all kinds of stuff around, like, I'm afraid to be seen, or I'm afraid to have, because when I have, then I'm visible, right? And so being visible is super scary or dangerous, or was for me in the past. There can be a fear of disappointment. Like, what if I put myself out there and people hate it? And so, the money looks like that. Like, I'm going to have just enough so that I don't have to apologize, right, for having more than. So it's a way of like keeping ourselves small or kind of like under the radar. If you're a warrior, you might be fighting with money where it's like, damn it, why can't I get ahead? I keep trying so hard and I'm fighting and I'm doing it. Well, that's what your essence is doing with the world too. She's fighting to be seen or understood or have somebody finally get her or get behind her defenses, but if you're not actually available for that to happen, it's not going to happen with you in relationships. It's not going to happen with you with money. It's not going to happen with you with coaching programs that you take, So do you see how it's really one thing is everything? And so when we start to look at our money container, it becomes this portal into, why don't I let myself be resourced? Why don't I let myself have a home base? Whatever your version of the story is, that's all that money is. So that's why, this work is, you can hear like how passionate this fire is in me. I can't even like calm down about it because it's like, oh my God, it is so time. It is so time for us powerful, juicy, shiny women to stop hiding behind the money excuse, to stop using money as the reason why we don't shine brighter or we don't actually do our work in the world, why we don't indulge our desires and put ourselves in places where we know growth and magic and beauty will happen, And what I'm actually seeing is, the progression of this is right now, it's like we got to get the rust out of our money machinery, right? Like we have to get the rust off of our hinges and oil the Tin Man, pieces where we've been asleep at the wheel of this exchange, And that's also what we've been doing with our essence, right? Because so many of us have had to be in hiding in these separate places of like, I can see stuff people can't see, but I'm going to pretend like that's not true. Or, I know that I have this ability to heal people in this really strange and deep way, but I have to, not let that be seen because these people I'm around wouldn't get it. So we needed that, right? We needed that for all of these years where we've been rusting in the forest of our aloneness. And now, as we come forward, it's like time to get ourselves moving in these fundamental energetic ways where we start to create structure and function and exchange with ourselves and with life and with money, so that this progression looks like first we're getting the rust out, right? So now you can actually like pay your bills and begin to expand into like, okay, what is my work in the world? But I'm making money while I'm figuring that out. And then like farther down the road, it looks like, the show I did on temples a few weeks ago, like I've had that question. Well, how did we resource that? How did we get to just lay in the temple doing, fun stuff and not like who was earning money or who was paying for that? Or how did we eat? Like those practical questions come forward for me. And it feels like, there's a way that we're going to learn to resource ourselves, that we're going to remember how to resource ourselves so easily, so abundantly, so extravagantly that, because really think about that. If we're templing from this place of essence, the kind of essence that holds down the center of a civilization, right? Where we are truly just luxuriating in the beingness of all that we are. There's a way that will attract so much abundance, whether we earn it and then we bank it and then that banking, pays for us to lay around in that way, or whether it attracts, masculine support and so the container is held in some other way. I don't know the particularities, but what I can see is it requires a vast and deep ability to resource, right? And so I just put that out there by way of future pacing where this is all heading, that this is not just about, like all the other money courses where it's like, take this course and then, make 6 figures or make your money back or, whatever the saying would be. This is such a bigger picture. This is like, let's see money as a portal to something more complete. And let's not exclude money and make it some bad word. We're just going to say like, here's this issue. Incidentally, we'll do other courses like this where we'll use other portals for clearing. So we could use relationships, your relationships in your life and your love relationships and your family relationships and your mothering relationships. All of that can be a very cool portal to allowing your essence to come through. And really anything we could name, would have a similar thing. But money is so universal because it's such a trigger for people and it's such a hot button of, it has this weird dynamic where people feel like it's something else. And honestly, it feels like that's the most pervasive in this community. It's the biggest disconnect. Because in our sisterhood, we are doing so much personal work. We're doing so much spirituality and, cutting edge, healing and just like beauty. And it's now time to marry that with the world so that you can be that beautiful being that you are and allow it to be safe for you to receive an exchange from life with that, right? That's what we're up to. So I'm going to share a few stories by way of how I've seen this showing up in my world lately, because I think it'll help to illustrate what you might be having happen in your space too, whether personally or around you, right? And it can shine a light on really how this mechanism is working in your space. So, there can be the obvious ways that we aren't in alignment with money, right? And an example of that is doing this major remodeling at our house. And there's this one particular guy who's, I won't say which guy he is. He's one of the contractors, okay? And he routinely, since he sold us the thing, so the way that he sold us his service was, it was significantly expensive, right? Like, $12,000 or something. And he sold it to us like, I'm going to charge you this much, but like, I'm not really making anything on this. Like, I'm just doing this because, I want to have this for my portfolio, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was definitely bullshit when he said it, but we're like, okay, that's super cute. That's a cute old paradigm way to sell. And fine. So what has continued to happen is every disaster that you can imagine, right? So there's been like nonstop rain, and then there's been this problem with the product, and then that problem with this thing. And ultimately, he has literally bled all of his profit out of this job, right? Like he's actually here today grinding off a whole section that he had already done to start over because he did it, and then it rained, and it was wild. So, there's this very obvious old paradigm thinking of, I'm not making anything, and I shouldn't, and it would be bad if I made something on the job, and so I have to hide it and pretend like I'm not making anything. And in a way, it's it's old paradigm, and in a way it's very current paradigm, because I know many of us sisters who are still doing this, right? We're apologizing for making money. We're apologizing for havingness of any kind, And so when we sell our programs, we're in a space of whether we do it verbally or whether we do it internally, we feel like we can't justify, if we're actually the receiver of an exchange, So we know we do beautiful work, but we're doing it for free, or we're doing it for cost, rather than actually sustaining ourselves, right? So that's kind of an obvious way. And then the less obvious ways are these inner conversations that we're having with ourselves, right? The subconscious, where we don't even know the conversation is happening. At the conscious level, which is just 4% of our brain that we can access, our conscious level is like, great, I'm going to set this price and I want to offer this class, and then I hope I get 10 people, and then that would make me X number of dollars, and I could be good with that, And yet our subconscious is completely misaligned with that. Our subconscious has us literally leaning against the door of incoming for all kinds of reasons. One of the big things that I see happening around that is because so many healers have been sold this bill of goods that you have to do this business by yourself. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to do it by yourself. And you have to create this whole online setup in order to do that. So you should have a website, and then you should have a list, and then you should have programs, and then you should have high-level expensive intensives, and, all of the bullshit, because everybody's been trained through the same lineage, so they're all saying the same things. But in reality, what I discover working with one client after another, and was certainly true for myself, is I was a great businesswoman when I worked for someone else. And then when I launched my own business, never before seen things came forward, like my own worth, right? Because instead of selling insurance as the commodity, now I'm selling myself as the commodity, right? So it's like, you should hire me because I can do something for you, or I have this process, or, right? So you're literally putting yourself out on the marquee, and that is a whole nother ballgame. So, any shortcomings that you have anywhere in your subconscious are going to come forward and get magnified by 1,000,000 when you start your own business. And so what I always say to people when they come to me and they're broke, or they're needing money fast, and usually they come because they need to get some clients fast, right? So they already have some version of an online business, and then they're trying to ramp up their clients so they can pay their bills, which is basically a recipe for disaster. Because there's just so much you have to excavate to be able to have your own coaching business. That's why so many coaches don't make it. I would say, I don't even know what the statistics are right now, but it's nearly all. I'm just going to say that nearly all coaches make less than poverty, right? Less than poverty line. And why is that? It's not because they don't have the right online business. It's because they aren't actually tending the thing that they're selling, right? The thing that they're selling is, be a bigger, better version of yourself, but they're not doing that at the deepest levels, right? So what we're really, so what I coach people when they come to me with that question is like, how can I get clients fast? Is you might be better off getting a job, right? You might be better off getting some kind of a job, a part-time job, or something that will allow resources to come in so that you can reliably, sustainably pay your bills, and you don't have that scarcity kind of permeating your being, so you can resource the healing that you will need as a human being to be clear enough and free enough to actually exchange yourself with the world, right? And this is not to say, like, for those of you who are out there who've already got invested in the website and all of that, this is not to take wind out of your sails. This is a reality check, because I think this is why it's almost like we've hit a skip in the record. So we were moving forward, and it was like, oh, great, we can have an online business and we can do what we're really about, and we can make a lot of money doing that. And as soon as that surged, the shadow took over and it got commodified in a really shadowy way. And now we're sort of stuck in this hope and belief that, we must just be doing it wrong. We must just need one more blueprint or formula to get us over the hump to really start making a living at this, And so what I want to say about that is absolutely you will be and should be offering your work in the world. And the more desperately you need money from offering your work in the world, the harder that's going to be. Right? And so, of course, this inspiration for this course came right after I said, I'm not going to offer a course. And I wasn't even offering a course because I needed the money. I was doing it because I felt like the reason I was pressing myself over these last few months is because I know that there's content I have that women need, and women have been asking for it, right? And then I had said that I would do it. And so there was all this like obligation and things like that. As soon as I said, I'm not even going to do that, I'm just taking spaciousness, look what popped in. What popped in was this whole fire for something I'm actually compelled to do. Literally, it's compelling me. I can't even stop, So this is the different experience when I'm talking about exchanging with life. The feeling when you're in the sweet spot is like respirating. It's like how your lungs take a breath, They just do it of their own accord. And it doesn't feel like I have to push or press or struggle or, beat my head up against the door or knock at the door or pull or any of that. We're literally just dropping into clearing what's in the way of us just being. What's in the way of us being, right? So I want to say one more thing. I want to say one more story, and then I'm going to tell you about how we're going to do this, how we're going to play with this in Soulful Money Medicine. So this other thing that's kind of shadowy about how this money paradigm is working is there's still this kind of shadowy projection that runs through the spiritual community that has to do with when one person's making money and other people are not, right? So there's this why should she make money if I'm not making money? And a great example is there's this beautiful collective of women that are that have begun to look at how do we do the new paradigm, right? Like how can we so there's this thing called joint venturing where when you have a list, then you could partner with someone else who has a list. And then if you offer a program, you can have them mail for you. So they would email your list, and then people from their list that buy, they would get a commission on, right? And it's a very, it can be a beautiful exchange. And in the past, it worked pretty well given the way the paradigm was set up, right? So it was like, I've created this list, then I'll help you, and then I'll make something and you'll make something. And so there's a partnership, right? Well, as with everything, right, as it becomes commodified, then it becomes this very transactional thing of like, what's in it for me and what's in it for you? And am I getting what I want to be getting? And did you give me what I thought I was going to get? It's all of that kind of an energetic. And so this beautiful collective of women said, so there were a few women who kind of like spearheaded, let's have a conversation about how we can shift this. Like what's broken and what needs fixed? Because really what's happening now is there's very little joint venturing because it kind of doesn't work and people don't buy it as much. And it's kind of more of a win for one side than the other. And, lots of glitches there. So as the conversation began, the invitation was like, let's get together and talk about it and see what we can figure out. And the response was kind of lukewarm through the collective, like, I'm not sure if that's really what we need, but not really sure what we need instead, And this is what's beautiful about when we can get together in our light, when we can be here in the fullness of like grace, instead of lack and projection, because that's the crappy thing. When we're not sustained, when we aren't resourced, when we do everything for everyone else, but we don't let anything come back to us, then that's when we get pissy. That's when we start getting mad at people who are letting energy in. That's when we start taking pot shots at people who have a model that works, because we aren't letting ourselves have that. And So as I invite you to listen to this, I want to just say to invite you in from a place of, no one is wrong, right? And it's so beautiful when we can just show up as sisters and say like, man, I am trying to do this thing. And for whatever reason, I can't let any money come in, Is it my product? Is it me? Is it something, in the way that I'm offering it? And this is what I love about this collective of women is they're highly astute, right? And so that was the conversation that began to happen. Is like, okay, it was lukewarm. Was it my shadow? Was it our shadow? Was it this? Was it that? And that's really how we get stuff done, is when we can really be seated so firmly in the personal self-responsibility of owning our stuff, right? Owning our stuff and then being willing to take a look at like what's off here. So the conversation that we've been having is around a different model of coming together that's more of an experience of being. And so in that conversation, we've been talking about this idea. So the first model that was put forward was we'll just do this for cost, right? So we're just going to everybody pay costs. And then it was like, well, maybe we'll hire an event planner for just a little bit of money. Right? A little bit for her but nobody else, like none of the leaders will take any money, so that nobody gets upset or feels less than, right? And the model that I put out was, I'm willing to host it. And here would be the cost, right? And it will be a stellar event and I will bring my genius to bear with, hosting it. And then once you're all here, I'll just, settle into beingness beside you, right? And so there was this, so then the question, right, or the feathers that get ruffled around that is, well, I don't know if it feels good for, the facilitators that I would be bringing in to get money, and then the food people to get money, and then Jody to get money if she's going to be actually just a participant, and then one woman was saying, but I spent a lot of time on it and I didn't take any money. And I said, I know. And look how pissy you are about it, right? Look how pissy you are that you spent all that time and now it's not what you spent time on, right? And then it brought your shadow forward and now we're sort of like struggling. And so what I'm clear about is that I am a stand for this in the new paradigm, right? Like this is one of the roles that I'm here to bring, is that we hold our value. Because if you think about the energetic of, if we're trying to get together to shift a paradigm that says we don't like the ickiness of joint venturing and launching and getting something from our sisters, and so that's why we've stopped doing it, then why would we put together an event to change it where we are tiptoeing around anybody getting anything, right? It's sort of just the flip side of the coin. Because then that's what you're going to be creating in your new collaborations and partnerships is everybody tiptoeing around like, I'm going to mail for you, but I'm not going to sign up for your program, because or I'm not going to sign up for your affiliate program because I'll just mail for you out of the kindness of my heart. Well, maybe that's good. And maybe that isn't an energetic exchange. That's more like a gift, And this is where we have to be so conscious because we're shifting eons of patterning here. Eons of patterning that say, as a woman, it's not safe to open up to receive or to get something for your gifts, right? Because if you're the medicine woman in the village and somebody starts paying you and then they get unhappy, you get burned at the stake, right? There's all of that in our history. And it's time to change it. So what I'm going to stand for is like, listen, if we're going to create a new paradigm, I don't want to do it from a place of what's the least amount we can invest in it in order to create it, right? Because that's not a new paradigm that I want to be in. I want a new paradigm where we are luxuriating in abundance in the golden temples, right? And so for that to happen, I have to be willing to exchange in that way. I have to say, here's my golden temple and here's the exchange required. And it's not about, right? It's not about the money that's coming to me. It's what are you open to exchanging for yourself? So, when I've taken courses that cost, a small amount of money, I've always done this. So whatever I pay, I always just say like, I'm intending that this money will return to me tenfold, right? So that I'm in the driver's seat. It's not like, oh, I paid this amount and then I didn't get what I thought I was getting, And so that's been all the way up the ladder. When I paid $20,000 for, a year of apprenticeship with my energy coach, it was, I did it with the intention of that money, that 20 grand will return to me tenfold. And of course it has. It has, because I was creating that. So it's from that space that I feel like, in this conscious community, we need to start to work through these shadows of, being afraid of anybody getting anything, or being afraid of over exchanging and then not getting something back, and having that be some reflection outside of you, but more a reflection of what is it in me that would have me exchange more than I would receive, right? If that's your pattern. And then that's the portal for clearing. Because I want you to be able to receive back. I want you to be able to fully receive all of the benefits from a class you would take from me or anyone else. I want you to be able to receive all the love and gratitude from the people that you are healing and serving. I want you to be in deep sisterhood with other highly resourced women, right? This is the call. This is the call. So we have much to excavate here. And and it's from a space of so much grace and love and light. We don't have to be ashamed. Of course we're doing it this way because we haven't known any different. Who could show us this until now? Who can see the things that we can see? Who is up for being the bringer of the dawn? And so of course there's this like confusion of how can I feel like such a bright light and so abundant and so powerful, and yet have my money situation look like this, right? So many of my clients are saying that right now. So many of my students, so many of my friends, right, are saying the same thing. And we're all saying it because it's time to take a look. It's time to take a look. And it was funny, after I, got on fire this morning, I was putting together the email to write, and I remembered last night standing outside with my husband and looking at the beautiful full moon. And I was like, oh, cool. We're going to talk about money on the full moon. That always feels really auspicious. And so I decided to look up Mystic Mama and see what they have to say about the energetics right now. Cause I don't know astrology much. I don't follow it up front, but I always find it so confirming on the back end. And, when I went to look, of course they were saying like, the full moon I think it's in Libra, will bring forth financial concerns, and it may do so something like with a grating fire where something has to be done. And I was like, of course it does. Of course it does. So if you've been feeling that same grind in your system of like, oh my gosh, I've had enough with this empty freaking checkbook. I've had enough with leaking energy with these bills, or with the dramas and traumas that I keep creating in my life, and I want to just start to fix this. I am with you, sister. Like that is the game on for me. So let's just talk about that. So what has emerged in the 45 minutes before the show this morning is this is also a lesson in new paradigm business. So what Viv and I've been talking about this whole year is I am so over having a business where every time I offer a class, I have to create a sales page, and I have to, do a series of emails, and I have to have all this planning, and then I have to be chained to the event, for however long it lasts and all of that. So I'm just not doing that. I'm not doing that. So in the moment on the phone with Viv, I was just feeling into like, okay, well, really, what is this? What is this? What's the commitment level? Who's it for? And it feels like this offering, this portal opening is really for women who are really at any level, of financial abundance or not, because it will bolster wherever you are. And I really see a lot of women who are coming to get the rust out, right? Like, I used to earn money and I haven't in a while, or I really need to earn money and, it's crunch time for me. And so I'm super inspired to get moving, So in a way, it will be as entry level as I offer. And if you know me and know my work, like we just go deep at every level. So what this is it will be a 6-week class. And I'm going to do it right after the radio show. So it'll just be, so those of you who want to who can't exchange right now for the class or aren't feeling called, you can still have the radio show free. And then those of you who are wanting to go deeper, we'll meet right after the radio show. And it'll probably be like a 75-ish minute class. We may go to 90 minutes some days, but around that. And each week we will work a different energetic of your money container. So we'll be using the issue of money to go in and see like, okay, but where are you not really available for safety and security, period, right? Because, safety and security can look like I have plenty of money. It can also look like I have a skill set that I know people will pay for. It can look like I have a strong relationship that, where support comes in, or I have a home that I can count on. So all of that can be handled by one energetic intervention. And so those are the types of things we're going to be playing, and we're going to be playing with havingness. What's your story about having anything, having money, having abundance, having success, having visibility, having love, having gratitude. So again, one intervention handles all of that. We'll be playing with money vows, like clearing these things we've learned from our childhood that said, I will always do this, or I will never do this. And noticing how those things are creating the dissension in your money container right now. And so many more. So we're going to be playing in that way. There will be one week where I just do question and answers. So, I'll probably laser coach some people and see what's up with you that way. And my intention for this time we spend together is that really this will catalyze some movement in your abundance, so that if you've been feeling stuck or been feeling like you're trying everything and nothing, you're still just swimming upstream, that, these classes will actually catalyze some movement for you. It will oil the hinges. And the classes will be recorded, so you can come live if you can make it. And if you can't, you'll have the recording. And then what's beautiful about the recordings is you could listen to these recordings. So you could do all 6 weeks and then listen to them again and again and again and again. And every time you do it, there's going to be a new layer of healing, and there will be new oiling of the hinges, right? So you could do it for a whole year for, if that's the only thing you could afford, it will seriously make a giant dent in your business. This is the kind of work that I did when I was healing my money situation. I just dug in and kept saying, okay, money's my portal. So what happens on the other side of that? And some days I would go in with money as the portal, and I would find myself working with my inner little girl, or working with, my great mother dynamic, or working with, one of my chakras, and then the money would follow. But the most important thing is, outside of the money, what else was happening is I was becoming whole. And it still is the work. Like really, anytime, even with a great money container, if I want to become more whole and I'm not sure where to go look, I could just choose any dynamic around money and use that as the way in. And there would be a huge amount of clearing on the other side of it. So, what else? There will be a Facebook group. I won't be posting regularly in the Facebook group, but it will more be for you all as participants. If you want to share your breakthroughs and your manifestations, or ask questions, support each other, find other women to play with and work with, all of that will be happening in a Facebook group. And we're starting next week. That's the download. It's like, there's no time like the present. So, we're going to begin next week, and the exchange is low. It's funny. I actually, the exchange is funny because when I really had this whole plan in my brain, right? So my commerce brain was like, okay, we need to offer soul medicine classes first, and then this class, and then that class, and then here would be the progression. And it's like, of course, the energy is always something completely different. So, what it feels like for this one is this is actually, a third of what I thought I would offer this class for, but it feels in alignment for where we're starting and, what the collective needs at this point. And so it's $497. So that's for 6 weeks of class. And you can sign up at soulfulmoneymedicine.com. There is a 2-payment plan. So if you can't do the whole thing, you can do half now. It's slightly more. It's like, I don't know, $60 or so more if you want to do it in 2 payments. You can do one now and one in 30 days. And we'll post that in the tribe. If you desire to be there and you can't make either one of those payments happen by next week, it will be open enrollment, right? Because I'm sort of over this as much as possible. Like I always want to let go of you have to do it by this deadline. So this will just be an ongoing thing because you can get the recording. So you can join us anytime during the 6 weeks. If, and obviously the earlier the better to take advantage of the Facebook group and the Q&A and all of that. But once we're done, this will be a package program. So you can just buy the recordings at any point. So I'm just letting you know that because this is not about you coming to this space from lack, right? Like I get that that's what's showing up in your life and that would be the reason that you're aligned with this. And the invitation is for you to come from a place of grace, from a place of grace and wholeness. Like, oh yeah, I'm whole and complete. And there's this, curious money thing happening. And so I'm going here to explore it. I'm not coming here because I'm bad or wrong or I haven't done it right or, I need this to make me something that I'm not, right? This is going to pull back the curtain so you can be more of who you are. Always, right? So that's the invitation. And is there anything else that I need to say about it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the last thing I want to say about it is, first I want to clear the confusion. So I'm going to be doing the radio show as always. So I won't be talking about money on the radio show. I'll just be talking about whatever's alive for me. But just the timing, right? So the money conversation for Soulful Money Medicine will happen for those who've exchanged the money. And that's going to happen after the radio shows, right? And the reason that that's important is because we're talking about energetic exchange, right? So if you come to a money class and you don't pay for it, you aren't going to be greasing the wheels of your rest, right? You're just going to be like, well, it's a great theory. And, I wonder if something could change. But literally, like you have to exercise that muscle in your system. So it's like, here's some money out, and then I'm going to let some information in, as good as the radio show is, there's a way that you can listen passively and not really implement. But when you pony up some exchange, suddenly you have to open. And this happens all the time. Like, it had happened for me a long time when I was starting my coaching practice and I wasn't really confident in my own offerings. And so I would offer them really cheap. And sometimes I would just do it for free. And then those clients wouldn't get a good result, and then I'd feel like this is why I should offer it for cheap because it's really not very good. And then, and then I would when I started charging more, those clients would get better results. And it was this very curious thing, because I was like, well, I wouldn't have to charge that much, if I could do it for less, I would. And usually I would charge, I gave away some free essence processes to my friends. And those of you who've done the work with us, it's many, many thousands of dollars for an essence process now, with Viv or with me. And, so I would give that away for free and the women closest to me would be like, yeah, I think that was good. Or we would get stuck, or I would talk to them a year later and they couldn't even remember what their core event was. And I was like, what do you mean? We did all that work. And it just didn't land. And, now, my private clients pay, tens of thousands of dollars to work with me, and they're the best clients ever, and they're getting the most out of it ever. Why is that? Is because it's about the energetic exchange. So when they're in a capacity of, I am open to giving, then I'm also open to receiving, right? You literally open doors. There's a reason that the $20,000 class that I paid for as a student was the most profound class of my life, right? Because I was open to it. Now, that's not to say that every time you would pay a ton of money, you would get something out of it, because some of us leak in that way. So we pay a ton of money and we're not really open to money coming, to exchange coming back. So we just pay the money and then we don't do the class, or we pay the money and we don't get anything out of it, So it is this tightrope to walk, which is why we're starting low with, basically $500. You're exchanging that, and then we'll actually be doing some work on that. The very first class of like opening to, how do you want to exchange with this money that you've put here? What would you like to receive back? What would that feel like? How could you let something like that land in your space? What if you could let 10 or 20 or 50 times what you're paying here come back to you? What would that look like? So that's what we're up to. That's where we're playing. I'll be talking about this for the next 6 weeks, just to let everybody know that it's happening, in case you weren't able to get in or you missed this show and need to hear it again later. So if you're interested, you can join us now. I think that link is working. I think Viv managed to get it up just before the show started. So soulfulmoneymedicine.com, the full pay link is there. If you need the to pay link, then you can get that over in the tribe. And that's at facebook.com/groups/Wild Soul Medicine Radio Tribe. And if you aren't in the tribe or don't want to be in the tribe for some reason, we'll also send it on our email list too, the to pay link. And short of all of that, if you can't connect with us in any of those ways, and you need the link to register, you can email Viv, and that's Viv, VIV, at jodyengland.com. All right, sisters. So with that, let's all just ground in here together, close your eyes, and just receive a big, deep breath. Just notice in this moment what your energy is like. Just being in the presence of a conversation like this, notice what happens in your energy system, right? So notice if your system is open and hopeful. Notice if it's feeling closed down, if you've already gone into retreat, like, oh, that's not for me. I couldn't have that. I don't have the money, so I'm ashamed, or I couldn't do that because I don't have the money to invest. Whatever is happening, just say hello to it. Just say hello to it, because this is your information about what's going on for you in all other areas of your life too, right? It's not just about this. So don't give your power away to that. Yeah, and then just be willing to be with whatever that feeling is in your system. Imagine that you could turn inward and then see if there was any tending you could do to make yourself feel better, more peaceful, more grace-filled. If you could smooth any prickles or unruffle some feathers. Could you add love to your space, or could you expand, right? Could you breathe and actually allow your space to expand as you remember that money is just energy, that words are just energy, that class offerings and the illusion of portals and doors and beginnings and endings, all of that is also just story. And that the truth underneath all of that is this shiny soul, this shiny essence of a being. And see if you could just create some space for her to expand. Maybe she can take a yawn of awakening, stretch her arms and legs. There you go. Yeah, and allow her to walk around inside your space, to dance inside your space. Noticing how she's already whole and complete. Whole and complete. Yeah, so she doesn't need anything outside of herself. This is the home base that you can return to whether you decide to do the class or not. And if you decide to do the class, it's only to expand this, more of this. You already are it, and you're just making a pathway so that you know how to get there on your own, on command, and make it your home. That's it. That's it. So thank you for being with me today, for entertaining my very intense fire around this topic of energetic exchange. I hope that it ignites something in you, whatever path you choose to take from here. And I look forward to continuing these conversations wherever they invite themselves. So much love to you. And until next time, bye for now.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination, for God's sake. A revelation, for God's sake. An inspiration, for God's sake. Illumination, for God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake.